I'm about to let everybody in.
Howdy, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Did not expect to see a little bit of snow last night.
Oh, there we go. Trying to figure out all the buttons on this computer. I know.
I couldn't, but my daughter had used my computer, and so every time I got on Zoom, I was my daughter. I had to hire one of my grandkids to come fix it. You know.
I know. My grandkids know more than I do about this. Catherine, I haven't seen you in a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kids have kept me busy.
I think I see Vince, but I don't see the boss here.
Hey, Carson.
Yes.
Where do I send my membership check to?
I think we'll do Karen's house. Do you have her address? If not, I can send it to you later.
Yeah, can you? I'd appreciate
can.
that.
Of course. We'll work on it.
It looks like we've got a lot to cover today.
We do.
I will be right back.
Good morning. Emily just joined.
Morning.
Hey.
Morning.
Good morning.
Well, hey there.
Hi there. Long time no see.
Well, not for lack of trying, believe me.
We're always glad when you can join us, Jean. Eugene, Joe, Jean,
I
all
get
of you.
all the above. I get Joe Jean a lot, so
Joe
Good
Jean.
morning.
When I first met you, Joe, I thought your name was Joe Jean. I
yeah.
thought that was your first name.
I get that all the time. Joe Jean.
Joe Jean.
Yeah.
And then there's Jean Putman, who's not really Jean. I mean, you are, but is that your middle name?
It's part of my middle name.
Yeah, Eugene, yeah. Well, looks like we've got a pretty good crew on this morning. Chair Downing, nice to see your face.
Good morning. How are you?
Good.
I think we can get started. It looks like we've got a great agenda today. So we do have a quorum?
We do indeed.
All right.
And if you're okay, I'd like to start off with an introduction. We have a new face at our Hollywood Squares today, and it's Craig Hebrink, and he is part of Sustainable Broomfield. And we've had several conversations with Brianna Harp at Sustainable Broomfield about how we are aligned in many ways with what they're trying to accomplish. And we've talked at our end on adding more members to our board, particularly nonprofit or ex officio members. And Brianna offered Craig, and Craig accepted. So we'd like to welcome Craig. I'd like you to take a minute, Craig, and tell us about you. You have a wonderful background, and then we can take a vote to put you in as an ex officio member, which means that you would be part of our board. None of your organization has to pay any membership dues, and you would be a non-voting member, but certainly an important contributor. So Craig, I'd like to hand it over to you.
Thanks, Karen. My name is Craig Hebrink. Like Karen said, I'm on the board of Sustainable Broomfield with Brianna. Been doing that for a couple years now. If you're not familiar with Sustainable Broomfield, we started out as just kind of a small citizens group in Broomfield, and we did a lot of advocacy work and just working with the community, offering things like composting classes and stuff. And but we've just applied and gotten approval for our nonprofit status, so we're official now. But my background is, I've been working for a long time in supply chain. I'm the vice president of supply chain programs at a manufacturing company, Sanmina. But more related to the Smart Commutes agenda, I'm a climate reality leader with the Climate Reality Project. So I was trained by Al Gore in 2019 in Minneapolis to be a climate reality leader. I'm really passionate about the climate crisis. I make a lot of presentations. I made a lot of in-person presentations before the pandemic hit, but I've made a few virtual ones since then, and do a lot of advocacy work trying to push legislation and stuff related to the climate crisis. My passion in that area comes a lot from my granddaughter. So I have a 2-year-old granddaughter, and when she was born, I started having nightmares about conversations I would have with her when she was 10, asking me why I didn't do more to help fix the climate that's going to be a major impact on her life. So I've committed myself to doing everything I can to help make her life and the life of people that are not as privileged as her even more better related to the climate. So that's kind of my background.
Well, thank you.
Well,
Go ahead, Karen.
I was gonna say, welcome, and Chair, I'm wondering if we could have a motion to accept our new member, Craig Hebrink, to our Board of Directors.
I believe we can do that. Would anyone like to make the motion?
Just, Joe, so moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Okay. I don't hear any opposition. So welcome. We're looking forward to working with you, Craig.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to working with you. Transportation is the biggest piece of
Offender.
our greenhouse gas emissions at the moment. So very important.
Okay, thanks. Okay, let's move on the agenda to the approval of the February 24th minutes. Has everyone had a chance to take a look at them? Are there any changes? I don't hear any, so is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved,
Motion.
Chair.
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? All right. Karen, we have the treasurer's report.
Thanks very much. I just want to draw your attention to a couple of things. One is we have a very robust current balance of almost $68,000. You remember this happens every year when some of the annual memberships come in, the local matches come in. But what's also interesting is we have about 65,000 out in invoices that haven't come in yet. One of the reasons we have so much that shows 67,949 is that we've received the two large local matches for the Flex Ride. That's 15,000 from Westminster and 15,000 from Thornton. And I have put those into a separate account this year. So all the money that comes in for local match for the Flex Ride is going to be held in a different account, a savings account, because this year we will have a heavier burden to make local match. Last year and the year before, RTD carried the brunt of that local match. And this year and next year, we'll have the largest amount to pay on that local match. So I want to segregate those funds and just move them over as I need to pay that out. So I'm anticipating by the end of this year to have around 60,000 in there to make that local match. And I'm just going to show it in two pieces on this sheet. One would be the ending balance of the checking account, which is 43,895, and then the savings account of 30,000, which then gets you the amount of total and the current balance as of today, which is 67,949. You can see that most of these are pretty regular. I don't think there's anything in the last 2 months that are unusual expenditures. And then we still have the NADA funds to pay us, which is the 12,500, which is their annual dues to Smart Commute, and the administration fee they pay into Smart Commute that we run their program for them, and that's 23,400. And they will pay us that once they get all their memberships from the 13 jurisdictions in. So I'm just waiting on that, and I think we'll be fine. And then we also have the rolling reimbursement, the CMAC Dr. Cog money for February and the Flex Ride money for February. And then the next month we'll have the ones from March. So any questions on the treasurer's report, I'm happy to answer.
Okay, I don't hear any. So do I have a motion for acceptance of the March's treasurer's report?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
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 Okay. And any opposition? All right, it is accepted, Karen. Next is Bike to Summer campaign.
Yeah, so now we're going to do the fun stuff that comes onto the agenda. You know, so much of it is just the stuff we have to do in order to get through the meeting. But now we're going to the fun stuff. And we have Bike to Summer campaign. Is Catherine, are you doing this one?
Yeah.
Great. I'm going to turn it over to Catherine.
All
All
right.
right. I'm going to walk you through a presentation. It's pretty detailed. It's meant to be a little bit independent, so apologies for all of the text. Carson, we can move forward. So the entire idea of this campaign came from the fact that DRCOG is postponing Bike to Work Day to the end of the summer. The entire purpose of a Bike to Work Day is really to encourage people to get on their bikes. And it's really specifically about work trips for Bike to Work Day, but it's to get people on their bikes in the beginning of a bike-friendly season in order to give them a prompting to develop a habit that will maybe sustain, past bike-friendly weather or into the next season. So that's really the purpose of what a Bike to Work Day does. These happen all over the country for that reason. So because of that, because we want to encourage those trial trips at the beginning of bike-friendly seasons, we are planning to develop a summer bike encouragement campaign in lieu of that Bike to Work Day that's normally in June. So instead of thinking about Bike to Work Day, we're thinking about Bike to Summer. So this is really intended to encourage biking for any purpose. So we can go on, Carson. I'm going to go through the goals, strategies, and objectives. These slides look a little bit similar to each other, but it's important to really frame what we're trying to do with this campaign. So our goals are, of course, to increase bicycle travel for the whole summer, starting out in May, which is when we generally have pretty bike-friendly weather here in the Denver metro, culminating in either September with Bike to Work Day or even possibly October, depending upon the weather this year. We want to, because we're encouraging people to get on their bikes, we want to increase that committed biking. That includes, of course, bike commuting, but it also includes all bike trips. And the intent is maybe it'll even go past the summer timeframe. We also want to raise the profile of local biking opportunities and events. All right, so those are the goals. Now to do those, we have some strategies in mind. So beginning in April, we're planning to promote a branded encouragement campaign, and that is the Bike to Summer. That's going to be the name, the brand of this campaign. We're going to be trying to provide like topical, themed, and targeted monthly events that encourage people to bike on their own or bike as part of a community, depending upon how they feel. We also, in order to achieve this, we can't do it alone. We want to partner with our local jurisdictions to promote bike-themed or bike-friendly events. And what we're really trying to capitalize on is stuff that's already in the works, as you'll see on the next slide, which is going into our objectives. So we want to specifically use our own promotional reach to connect to the kind of bicyclists that are not necessarily the hardcore and not necessarily the people who are terrified, but the people who are in between. Those types of bicyclists are called interested but concerned type of bicyclists and enthused and confident bicyclists. Those are the people that we really want to engage with this. We know that we can't stop someone from being very opposed to biking if they're already opposed to it and have that attitude, but we want to get people who are maybe curious but have concerns to engage with us and provide opportunities for them to ride. We want to, and then our promotional reach, it's our newsletter, our social media, as well as our partner organizations, social media, newsletters, communications. Those are the kind of networks that we're going to be tapping into as far as promotional reach. We want to, of course, create interesting and enticing themes, hoping that we get what I'm calling reasonable participation and attendance. So participation is kind of the word that we're using for engagement that isn't at a live event. Attendance is, of course, easy to track. It's people that actually show up to these events that we're going to be trying to promote. And then this gets us to the final objective, which is to partner with our local jurisdictions on events. It's a little bit smaller of a font, but some of the events we're already aware of that we can partner with include Northglenn is doing a full moon bike ride series. Every month they're going to have a full moon bike ride as part of their HEAL committee, which I sit on. Brighton has been doing that same thing for many years. So those are two existing, and we know that Brighton's going to be doing it this year. Those are two existing opportunities for us to be able to sink into with this campaign. We're also aware that Broomfield is going to be celebrating Earth Day, which Carson has been helping to plan how we're going to integrate with that. And then Broomfield might be doing something for Trail Days, which is in June. So we're keeping an eye on that. And right now we're in the process of connecting with all of our local jurisdictions to determine what is already being planned and if it's something that's bike friendly that we can connect with as part of this campaign. We really want to capitalize upon the efforts that our jurisdictions have to develop a strong event. That's something that is beyond our capacity. So we're trying to create like some positive partnerships and synergy there. All right, we can go on, Carson. So we're of course looking at a summer timeframe to kick off. Everything's going to be launching next month, and it's really the intention is to be preparing people for the whole summer. Initially, we were just going to be doing videos and premieres and promoting the existing bike resources that we already have a plethora of, but we're also now have an opportunity to work with Broomfield around Earth Day. So that was like a positive, unexpected occurrence. And I'll get into that in another slide. The May through September timeframe, we are going to be promoting a monthly theme. That'll be the next slide that I'll describe those. We're going to be promoting hopefully one event in person that people could attend to if they're feeling safe, as well as we'll be promoting all biking opportunities. So that's especially important for Northglenn and Brighton, who are going to be doing something every month, regardless of whether that's where we partner for the monthly theme. We're going to be presenting or promoting those things. And we're going to also try to promote ways for people to just bike independent of an event to engage with us like virtually. In October, we'll be doing maybe a wrap-up event, depending upon the kind of engagement that we have in this effort and depending upon the weather. All right, next slide. So here are some themes that we have in mind. We don't necessarily have any of these themes assigned except for I Bike to Work, which will be for Bike to Work Day in September. This, of course, has a consistent I bike blank. I bike alone, I bike with friends, I bike with kids, I bike my neighborhood. This is intended to appeal to like tribalism, that people can self-identify their own tribe and hopefully be drawn to that event. Because these are going to partner with local jurisdictional events, we are expecting we're going to have significant attendance from the local jurisdiction because it's easy to show up and they're the ones promoting it. But maybe we'll draw people from a little bit further away that'll get in a car to drive over with their bike, but will then get on their bike and bike around just to encourage more people to engage and get excited about biking. All right, next slide. So all of these themes kind of have, I guess, ideal situations. So we're looking for events that kind of identify with these different categories. Like I bike alone, we're kind of thinking about a virtual event that we won't have anything in person, but we can do something very specific. And then we're thinking about May for this one, springtime. I bike with friends. We need to make sure that it's adult friendly, possibly in the evening. I bike with kids needs to be bike friendly, family friendly, possibly like a weekend morning. I bike my neighborhood. Hopefully we will be biking a neighborhood as part of that theme event. And then I Bike to Work. We will be partnering with any or all Bike to Work day stations that develop in our area to support those within that theme. Say next slide. So we have some very loosely tentative plans. Carson has described this at our staff meetings as building the plane while it's flying. Everyone's heard that metaphor, but that's kind of what it feels like. We have a lot of firmer plans in the near future in April, and we have much more tentative plans as we go out into the summer months. So in April, we're going to be pre-recording an interview with a medical professional. Thank you, Emily. I think you were the one that connected us with a doctor over at St. Anthony North. We're going to be pre-recording that interview, and then we'll be doing a YouTube premiere of the interview as kind of a quasi webinar. So we're trying to premiere it so that we get people to show up at the same time. But then if you can't make the premiere, it's just like a webinar recording at that point. We're going to be promoting our existing YouTube videos. We have quite a few 5 tips videos that support biking. We'll be promoting, of course, all those resources that already exist. And in April, surprise, we have this partnership with Broomfield Earth Day, and that's going to culminate in an in-person writing opportunity, weather permitting. Carson has all the details on that if anyone has specific questions. Now, beyond April, we are still in the process of identifying potential partners. Right now, it's looking like August might be a partnership with Northglenn because they're doing a morning full moon bike ride, and they're also looking at doing like a bike rodeo for kids and some more in that event. So we thought that might be a good partner. We, of course, are watching June for Trails Day with Broomfield. But aside from that, we don't have a lot that's really pinned down as of yet. That gives you an idea of what we're looking at, and we're really aware of what's on the radar. All right, next slide.
I'll jump in here and just say that I think the Broomfield thing, I'd like to add just a smidge here and say that both the city and county and Sustainable Broomfield have been great partners in working with us in order to get this April event kind of pulled together and culminating hopefully in a full moon bike ride. We're having a conversation with the staff later today and really excited about that opportunity.
Thanks, Carson. Yeah, that's been a surprise and a delight, I suppose. That's something that we did not think was possible, and it's been really fun, and also a lot has been going on, and Carson's been spearheading that for sure. As far as engagement, we have to think about engagement at the in-person level as well as at the virtual level. So for in-person events, we're going to have some like tchotchkes and prizes for people. We have these fabulous bike lights that are really, people really want these. If they bike, it's targeted really for bikers. Obviously, you don't want a bike light if you're not out on your bike. We have those prizes as well as a lot of other things already in our closet, which is Karen's garage. We will be doing this build a bike map display, letting people self-identify routes that they either ride or would like to be able to ride, except have maybe a barrier of some kind. We're trying to frame everything very positively, not like thinking about like what prevents you from biking. It's more about what would be like a really great wish that you have. And we're going to have maps at different scales at these events. So we'll have something that's like at the neighborhood scale, at the city scale, and then at the large metropolitan, like North Metro, our area scale, in order for people to identify routes at all of those different scales. And that's actually kind of going into some data collection for us. The other thing that we're going to be doing is just a collaboration board, have a big foam core board that people can go out and write on. They can write what their biking wish is. They can react to what other people have written on the board. We'll be sanitizing all of those handheld tools between uses, of course, to keep everything really clean. But that's something that will hopefully build between events. So we would take the same collaboration board around. We take the larger scale bike maps around so that people from different communities would be able to feed into the scale and the data set of the entire region, hopefully. Something else that we thought of was the idea of having like make-a-wish buckets with pre-identified goals or things that people want for bike encouragement. And we could use what we already have in our North Metro survey to provide categories to people. So we thought that might be another fun way to engage with folks. And we'll also, if it's not enough already, we'll be collecting pledges with an email address for follow-up. Now for virtual participation, I had a meeting with Becky Smith at North Glen earlier in this week, and she mentioned we could potentially do virtual pledges as well. So that's something that we're going to be investigating. But other than that, we're thinking about doing a complete bike route passport. So this would be something we would partner with jurisdictions on to identify routes that people could ride in these various communities. We also are looking at doing maybe geocaching or scavenger hunts for those virtual participants. All right, I think last slide from what I remember. Oh no, there's 2 more slides. So measuring the effectiveness of this thing. We want to measure attendance at these actual in-person events. We're going to be surveying attendees as much as possible. And trying to set up a before and after evaluation. We can use like lower level prizes to get people's email address in order to do that. And hopefully if people are at a biking event, they'll understand we're wanting to collect data. Would you mind sharing your email so we can follow up with you? We don't see a lot of resistance to that. We're going to be looking at the engagement that we receive on those in-person tools, the bike map and the biking wish tools. We'll be looking at bike pledges. We'll be even evaluating the amount of engagement that we have with our local jurisdictions. And we're going to be evaluating if other TMAs hear about this effort and then decide that they're gonna hop on the train as well and kind of replicate it. That's a measure of success for us that we really want to be aware of, because we like to be collaborative here at Smart Commute. We want to make sure that, you know, everyone can learn from our good work, but it's nice to know that we thought of it first at the same time. All right, last slide, I think. Yep, here we are. This is, Tammy designed a logo for us, which is there with the bike wheel and the sun. And then she also designed this graphic that we'll be using on flyers. So that's the conclusion of the presentation today. So we can answer questions as a staff. This is really a team effort.
Well, this is very creative. I'm excited about it. Are there any questions, comments?
Yes. Can we get a copy of this presentation?
Yeah, for sure.
Because I'd like to show it around.
Oh, great. Yeah, if you're making a connection, keep us in the loop on what you're thinking. That'd be great.
Karen, are you gonna?
This is Emily. I just had a quick question. You had said that you were going to be filming one of the doctors. Is that Sue Liddell is who you're connecting with, or is it someone else?
It's Sue. That's right, Emily.
Okay.
She's been great to work with so far. Been really helpful.
She's amazing. I just wanted to clarify. She's actually our director of our surgery department. So she's a nurse, not a doctor, but she is amazing, and you guys are going to really enjoy her presentation.
Thank you.
Will you be?
Yeah, Carson. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's all right, Kate. Will you be presenting this to NADA? I mean, we'll have a lot of local jurisdictions there tomorrow.
I'll be doing that one, yes.
Thank you.
So Carson, this is Craig. I know you're working with Broomfield, and I know you mentioned you were working with Sustainable Broomfield and Brianna and stuff too on the tie-in with Broomfield Earth Day, but we're actually doing a similar to a scavenger hunt. It's called a goose chase or something, is going to be the event that Sustainable Broomfield is doing with the city for Earth Day. And I definitely, this is a perfect opportunity to tie it into biking. I think we can, you get points for doing certain activities and stuff, and we could give extra credit if you ride your bike. I think that'd be a great way to tie it in. And Karen, you mentioned you had some swag if you're interested in, supplying some of that for prizes for some of our goose chase stuff. I think it would be another way to get the Smart Commute message and publicity out there too. So Carson, maybe we can tie off more offline on exactly what you've been involved with already, and we'll make sure that we really tie biking into the goose chase stuff.
That'd be great, Craig. Thanks for bringing that up. I have a meeting later this afternoon with Brianna and some of the city and county staff. So we're going to be discussing some of that the great ideas around the goose chase and the culmination of hopefully a full moon bike ride at the end of the Earth Day week. So I'll definitely connect with you maybe tomorrow once I have that meeting, and we can kind of talk about some of your ideas. I love the partnership ideas. So thank you for those.
And great minds think alike, because Brianna called me yesterday, Craig, and said, do you have any swag that you could give us for scavenger hunt prizes and registrations? And I said, yes, we do. In fact, we have quite a few RTD passes, $10.50 worth of smart cards that we weren't able to distribute last year, and they don't have an expiration. So I've offered those. We have mouse pads, we have water bottles, we have little bike pins. We have an awful lot of swag. And so I thought I'd put together a bag full of swag and show it to Brianna, and she can maybe show it to your group. You guys decide what you want, and we'll be happy to supply it. As I say, we weren't able to do much outreach last year, and we had purchased quite a lot of swag. A lot of it has RTD logo on it, which is a great promotion for transit as well. So we're happy to do that. And then I wanted to let Kyle know that we really thought about his desire to start doing a more comprehensive bike map with connectivity for both social trails and commuter trails. And that's part of our effort in this Bike to Summer, where we're taking around a map to ask people, where you ride, where are the connections missing? How you get from one area to the other, in preparation for a larger effort in putting together a more comprehensive biking map.
Cool. Thanks, you guys. As a Catherine and Carson, super well done. This is pretty awesome. And so many things, so many aspects of this are excellent, and especially the measurement component and the gathering the data, I think is going to be super, super helpful. Two follow-up comments. One, Carson, I'm going to have our folks at DMB Community Life, who we have managing all of our associations at Baseline, give you a call to see if there's a way to plug into some of these initiatives in the summertime. And then the second thing is, and yeah, Karen, you hit it. I'm trying to figure out how we stitch together a more comprehensive map for how bicyclists can move throughout the North Metro area. And this is going to be a huge step in that direction. I guess my question is twofold. One is, who is, if there is an entity, is the keeper of the bike map for all of Metro Denver? Is there such a keeper, or is it just sort of a Swiss cheese thing? And then secondly, is there any opportunity to collaborate with Bicycle Colorado on this type of initiative? It seems like the interests would be very well aligned.
I think I can answer both of those final questions. The keeper of the data, DRCOG has a lot of the jurisdictional data that they collect from local jurisdictions, and then it comes to them. It does look a bit like Swiss cheese, like your comment is spot on there, because it depends upon what jurisdictions themselves are gathering. There is not an overarching entity that's collecting anything more than that, with the exception of there is a for purchase bike map that does show the whole region. And it's slipping my mind what entity puts that together. It's some nonprofit, and it's very high level as far as connecting at a larger scale. It's probably more for recreational cyclists, I'd say, the people that are getting out there to get their miles, more than like biking for travel. But it's a really nice map. The last time I saw one was a few years ago. DRCOG purchased them for us to be able to strategically pass along to people who needed that level of assistance when they were doing their bike routing. So we have maps as well from the jurisdictions themselves to start from as far as identifying bike infrastructure. That is a different conversation than thinking about bike routes. As you probably are aware, when people approach biking, they're not thinking about the infrastructure as their first objective. They're thinking about connecting from place to place. And then they start looking at how they can make those connections, maybe using infrastructure. So it'll be an interesting experiment for us to go out and try to let people self-identify the routes that they are very familiar with, or the routes that they would definitely take, if not for maybe a little barrier in the way. Now, the other question that you had about partnership with Bicycle Colorado, we're actually looking into that. We have a staff member who was aware of a grant that they had put in and gotten funded a couple of years ago to provide like bike mentoring, like one-on-one with people. And we're looking to see if that grant is still available, because that would be a very easy way to bring them in and include them. If it's not still available, we're going to have a discussion to see if there's a way to partner.
Awesome. Good.
Great, thanks, Catherine. Anyone else have any comments? All right. Well, I'm excited. I'm waiting for the next update. All right. Next, we have grant pursuits.
Yeah, so I'll try to keep this short but important, and we've got a large agenda. We'd really like to get through it this morning before we start losing people.
Right.
We have pursued a Can Do Colorado e-bike program, and we're successful in getting an award. We got a $50,000 grant award for this program, and it ties into the Flex Ride program that we have. The Flex Ride is the shuttle at 144th I-25 for workforce and entry-level workers, and during the pandemic, essential workers to St. Anthony North and to Amazon and to the restaurants and hotels over there. This $50,000 grant will help us purchase some e-bikes. It's a loan-to-own program, and Jane Shreve is running this program. We are going to identify people who are entry-level workers at these essential businesses at 144th and I-25 who need some assistance that last 5 to 10 miles where there's no connectivity for them. And they will be able to get one of these bikes and loan it from us, and at the end of the program, own it. And we're just working out the specificity of this program now, and we're going to come back to you with more on this. But congratulations to us for getting this this award, $50,000, and that will mainly pay for the purchase of these e-bikes and the whole package that goes with them. And then there are quite a few requirements for us to be able to monitor how they're used and survey and analysis. So, and congratulations to Jean who speared this up, but all our staff put time and effort into writing this grant, and it was Tammy and Carson and Catherine who worked hard on this grant. So congratulations to us. We're excited about that. And then the second one is this it's a CDOT grant as well, that they're looking for telework opportunities. There's quite a lot of money available through the state for this. The last time I checked, there was about $80,000 left. And generally, these grants are about $5,000 each. And we have done a lot of telework videos, a lot of telework information, and we really didn't go after the first 2 tranches of this money because we'd already done so much of that work. We evaluated what's missing, what are we not doing we should be doing. And we have repeatedly heard about the fatigue people have at being at the screen all the time, or the restlessness, the sleeplessness, a lot of issues that people have having changed their life to teleworking. And so we decided amongst us that maybe a grant application could focus around healthy teleworking. And we identified 3 places. One of them is ergonomics, maybe a 15-minute video that shows you how best to use your computer. I know we all probably know this, but we don't really know it. And how to set your computer up, how to sit at your chair, what level it should be, what your lighting should be like. The second one is physical health at a computer. And we probably know some of this as well, but how do we disconnect physically from our computer enough during the day so that you're not just sitting there all day long? And the third one is mental health and exercises that can help you reduce your focus on your computer so that when you leave your computer, you're not taking all that stuff with you. We've read a lot about sleeplessness that people have, the fatigue that they're having, the physical health problems that they're experiencing, the neck aches, the headaches, all of that. And so we've engaged specialists, a certified physical therapist, who will help us put these 3 videos together. This grant will pay for her time and a tiny bit of oversight administration funds for us. It requires some kind of a partnership, and we've made a couple of efforts to get some partners. We went after partners at Imagine, and they were interested, but it didn't pan out. The same with Community Reach. Those agencies are really large agencies, and part of this grant requires that they engage with us and survey afterwards. But we did have a very good meeting with Broomfield Chamber. Sam Taylor at the Chamber said they will partner with us, so they'll be our partner in this effort. And the focus of doing this is to put together this pilot video program and then open it up to anybody who wants to use it. So it'll be available to everybody at NADA, any of our organizations, really any organizations that would want to use it. We're very excited about this. We hope we get this grant, and we'll keep you up to date on that one.
Great. So I do have a question concerning the e-bike program. How many bikes at the end of the program will we have, can you purchase with this money?
We're starting with about 14.
14?
And we think in phase 2, we can go up to 30.
Okay.
And it just depends on how much more we can bring in. There's partnership opportunities within this grant. And I think we've told you before that we have the numbers from Amazon and St. Anthony that indicate where those workers are coming from within a 10-mile radius that might be the people who would be best served by having an e-bike. So we've got some criteria in place. It won't just be first come, first serve. There are some criteria to get these e-bikes.
Great. Thanks. Anyone else? Okay. Thanks, Karen, for all the hard work. I know it takes a lot of effort to put these grants together. So, and I'm very interested in the wellness videos. I think that's going to be great. Maybe in North Glen, the Sustainability Committee would be interested, Catherine, in doing something like that. Okay. Next is the Etrp presentations to Broomfield, and so go ahead.
Carson, this one is yours. I'll just tee it up with saying this employee trip reduction program legislation is coming up. It's in the rulemaking now, and we want to introduce it to business groups like Broomfield Chamber and AC Rep to give them an overview of what's coming through in future legislation and how it will affect employers. So Carson, we just have a quick overview slide. We wouldn't be the ones giving the presentation. We would have the experts that do it at oh, what's the acronym? AP, what's the acronym, Carson? I'm turning it over to you.
It's APCD.
Oh, is it Tammy who's doing this slide, or is it you, Carson?
Carson.
It's me. She's the keeper of our acronyms. She's the acronym expert here.
Of the acronyms, yeah. An important job description.
Well, I'll keep it really brief. I think Karen teed it up right. You guys have heard this kind of presentation in the past. So no, it's kind of on the way. This is the Regional Air Quality Council's slide that they gave to us last week at a TMA meeting. It just gives an overview of kind of the goals and the various things under consideration for the program at a state level. So what's going to happen is the RAC will submit this as a recommendation for the state to write the rule for a place to start. As they write the rule, they could dismiss it, but I think it sounds like they're going to take a lot of this into consideration as they write this rule at the state level. So the goal of the program is pretty obvious, right? To improve the air quality and reduce the GHG emissions through SOV trips across the region and across the state. The conversation started at around 250 plus at each employment center, but it is whittled down to 100 plus employees at any given employment center, which is skyrocketed the number of businesses that this might affect across the state. That's still obviously up in the air, but it takes the number of employment centers well over 3,000, even just in the Denver metro area. So that's pretty big. The program targets under consideration. This is where the rubber meets the road a little bit, and there's still a lot of work to be done from the RAC and the state on this area. So they're suggesting that we start at a 75% floor in terms of SOV rate. So that would mean almost 1 in 4 employees would not drive alone to work on any given day. And that would be the minimum requirement to start out. Then a couple of years later, they're saying we should whittle that down to 60% of employees should not commute by SOV. So that would be a pretty significant change in a lot of areas, especially ours where there's not as many options in our area. They're suggesting that state agencies kind of set the example and go first, and that those that are served by good transit, they go before those that are not. So think downtown Denver has more options than we do, so they should go first. And the program would be phased in, as I understand, it's pretty squishy around this area here, but 3 to 5 years in terms of how this program would be phased in over time. So that's kind of the main meat of the program. This is just some of the administrative requirements around how an employer would be affected. So they'd have to develop an employee trip reduction plan, which is something that Smart Commute could greatly assist them with. They would have an appointment of what we call an ETC, an employment, basically just a coordinator at the employment center. A lot of times this is an HR person that takes on this role and just oversees the program and works with us to do surveys, which is the next point, surveys and an employee trip reduction plan. Outreach, there's a lot of outreach happening right now. We're encouraging people to join in on these listening sessions that are happening at the state and the regional level. So we're engaging with our largest employers on this point as we kind of move forward and trying to start the conversation. So this is why we'd like to bring it right to the Broomfield Chamber, right into you, Deb, at the AC rep, as we kind of discuss this and frame the conversation around how these employers can give comment as the rulemaking starts to get more concrete as we move forward. There's a lot of issues and options here at the bottom. There are a lot of alternate compliance approaches across the country. As I understand it, I think there's about 27 of these Etrp programs across the country that are happening right now. So this is nothing new. There's a lot out there around how this can be done successfully and in a business-friendly way. But they're working through all that at the state level. And I think that's probably where I'll stop it. I don't want to get too much in the weeds, but we're happy to take kind of questions. But this is just an introductory discussion.
Carson, this is Kyle. How does telecommuting factor into the single occupant vehicle calculation?
As I understand it, Catherine and Tammy can correct me if I'm wrong, but that would count as a non-SOV trip completely.
So businesses would get credit for the number of their employees who are telecommuting. Okay.
That's right. And compressed work week, things like that are also under consideration of being counted in that SOV calculation.
Any other questions?
Might just mention that one of the reasons we think it's really important to have these discussions now with ACERP and with Broomfield Chamber or anyone else that you think we should have conversations with is because they are making the rules now. And in an absence of having real examples from employers, these rules might be very difficult for employers to support. And so between May and August, the rules are being made. They want to have the rules finished by August. And this is an opportunity for employers to look at what's being proposed and give some real life comments to the rule makers. Often you see legislation come down that doesn't consider the people that are being legislated upon. And we feel very strongly that these programs will be beneficial to the state of Colorado and forward the mission that we have at Smart Commute, but also have to be realistic. And we certainly don't want, interruption in getting back to a robust economy. We want to be sure that the kinds of things that are being required have consideration for how employers can do this and how they can continue to maintain their businesses and still meet these goals. And we think it can be done. We just want to be sure that everyone who's being affected by this has some input.
Great. All right. I don't hear any other comments, so let's move on, Karen, to the bigger vision.
All right. Well, as you remember, we had a very robust conversation last week or last month. Seems like last month on our desire at Smart Commute to change our name. We think Smart Commute Metro North is a very long name. It's confusing. We'll show you an FAQ here in a minute of some questions and answers. But we took into consideration everything everyone said, and we had proposed that we go to Smart Commute Colorado, and we heard some pushback from the board on that. And I think I explained that originally we had wanted to just be Smart Commute, but that URL was already taken and for lots of reasons, we went with Smart Commute Metro North, and I've got a slide on that in a second. Meanwhile, internally, we said, well, let's see if we can get that Smart Commute URL from the people who have it. They're not really doing much with it. And so Catherine, bless her heart, went through a whole lot of research and phone calls and conversations with the owners of Smart Commute. They're a research park in North Carolina in Durham, and they have owned that URL for longer than 15 years, and they continue to renew it and hold on to it, but they don't use it. So Carson and I had a nice conversation with the owners of the URL yesterday. I'm not sure why they pay so much for it, but they buy it in 5-year increments for $5,000, and they're willing to let it go and sell it to us for $2,500. They are a similar organization to us. They provide bus service, they do carpool, vanpool, that kind of thing with their industrial park, their research park that they have there. And so we would like approval from the board to purchase this Smart Commute URL and leave off the Metro North in, as we move forward, make that transition. And I'll throw up the slide now, Carson, of the FAQs of the questions and answers we got last time. So let me see here if I can make that bigger so I can read it.
I had to split it into 2 slides, just so you know. The first 3 questions are on the first slide, and then I did a couple more on the next. Too much text to fit into one.
Yeah, I just wanted to see if I could make it bigger on my side. Oh, there you go. Okay, So if you remember, we said, why the name change? Well, you know that we were part of Metro North Chamber. They helped us get the grant to put together the TMO. And at the time we were housed with that group over in the Orchard. And when we were thinking about whether we should be Metro North, we were encouraged to tie our relationship to the Chamber Metro North Chamber. And you know that they have been dissolved. They're no longer an entity and organization. We always feel like Smart Commute Metro North is long and cumbersome. It's often mistyped. If you don't type it in right, our emails come back or they don't get to us. It's misspoken. I have heard it called Metro North Denver. I've heard it called Smart Metro North, all kinds of things. And we think it's really restrictive because it implies we only serve Northern Adams region. And we think a rebranding to a shorter name reduces the length of our email addresses. Maria Garcia Berry called me last week and she said, oh my God, you've got the longest email address in the whole world. And I always am tired before I get to the end of your .org. And I'm like, yes, thank you for saying that. And I think it could create a vibrant focus on who we are and what we do if we could shorten it to Smart Commute. And then I think you should know we're already often just referred to as Smart Commute. And we also have Smart Commute Colorado, but we did hear some pushback on that. And we'll continue to pay for that URL. Maybe that's something we do in the future, but we're really suggesting and recommending that we buy the Smart Commute URL and own that. It's paid up through 2025. And so when we purchase it, we would have no other costs in maintaining that or keeping that, paying for it until 2026. And then will this change what Smart Commute already does? No, we're not really. The employer services and community outreach and programs, grant funding requirements will all remain the same. We'll continue service to all the native jurisdictions. Next slide. And then will partnerships, memberships, and sponsorships in Smart Commute change? And we say no, existing partnerships and memberships and sponsorships will remain the same. The subsequent rebranding can really help us grow. We can build some new partnerships and we can offer that different fee-for-service contracts outside of our immediate vicinity. Many of our sister organizations like Commuting Solutions, who dropped off 36 Commuting Solutions, they changed it to Commuting Solutions. They do fee-for-service. The Cherry Creek TMO, Transportation Solutions, they do fee-for-service. And Denver South changed their name from Southwest Denver Partnership to Denver South. They do fee-for-service. We will contain our specified DRCOG way to go service boundaries. They'll stay the same, and we won't be poaching other TMAs. And when we do our work with DRCOG, we will do within our specified DRCOG boundaries, but we are still able to do the fee for service outside of our boundaries. We really feel like areas that will need TDM strategies, like the new legislation in a year or two for Etrp, they're going to need someone to help them develop those strategies or programs. They may not have a TMO in their vicinity, and we'd like to be able to be looked at as a resource for them and be a fee for service for them. We have pretty good credentials now that Catherine is a TDM certified specialist, and we know what we're doing. We think we could offer pretty good expertise to others who need it. I think that finishes that slide, and then you'll want to know how much does this name change and rebranding cost. We don't know yet. We do know how much it is to buy the URL, but we're researching with our web provider and our security provider what we really need to do to do the forwarding that we would need, the changes to the website, email, contracts that are in existence, legal changes that will be necessary. And so we'll come back to you with that. That's really what we wanted to talk to you about today. and get your take on whether we should move forward with this purchase of Smart Commute.
Okay. Are there any comments concerning this?
I think it's a good idea to go to just smart commute. And I'd like to suggest that if anybody would like to provide a donation to smart commute to help offset the cost for getting the name.
Thank
What
you.
I guess what I'm saying is, I'd be willing to add $200 to my dues, with $200 of it going towards the acquisition of the name.
Okay, thanks, Jean. You know, I don't know that we're at that point yet. Do you, Karen? Or
No, I think we can cover the cost of this. And the reason we can is when I did the budget, I put in about 17,000 for our local match from Adams County, and the amount that we billed them was actually the local match increase that we had plugged in with them last year. So we got, instead of 17,000, we got 20,000 from Adams County. We're anticipating Broomfield putting some money into Smart Commute because of the extension that we've done into their community. So I love the offer, Jean. I'm not sure that it's necessary. I think we can cover this cost without too much pain. But we've also talked about a sponsorship. So maybe we could have some kind of a mechanism that allows people to donate to something like this or one of our other programs, sort of like they do the fundraising for NPR or CPR, those kinds of things.
yeah, I saw a comment from Deb. Deb, do you want to kind of chime in?
No, but I mean, we just went through rebranding, so I can talk with whoever on just some things to consider. But as long as your EIN number isn't changing, it's relatively painless, except for maybe web design and a couple other things. But I'm happy to throw my recent experience to anybody that wants to hear it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
That's great. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I think I don't see any downsides to this at all. I appreciate you kind of researching it. I know personally, when I talk to anyone, I don't say Smart Commute Metro North, I say Smart Commute. I mean, you know, so I think that we should be flexible and look for change that's going to improve our organization. So.
I agree. I'd be in favor.
Me too.
Oh, that's great. I don't think we need a formal motion on this. I just want to gauge any negativity or any, if you see something that's that we're not seeing as a downside to doing this.
Thanks, Karen. Right
You.
now. Oh,
Okay.
all right. Next, we have a discussion on presentations and webinars.
Right. So we just wanted to get a little bit of guidance on this. As you can see, you know, the baseline development, I've seen Kyle's presentation a couple of times, and I see you're doing something for ACERP, Kyle. What I like about this presentation is it really speaks to how development can be a partner and a player in sustainability. And I love the connectivity in your development roadwork. What do they call that? The trimming down of streets in your Wooner, the pollinator efforts to reduce water use and increase bees and butterflies. All of those kinds of things are right along the line of what we talk about at Smart Commute, that aren't just transportation related, but really sustainability related. Pedro's not with us, but today he's in Spain on spring break. But he's working with the International Bridge, Tunnel, and Toll Association on climate change, sustainability, and resilience in transportation and toll roads. And he's offered to do a presentation. I've talked to Jim Suby, who's the president of Front Range Rail Commission, or the chair, I guess they call it. And he's willing to come and give us an update. Lots of stuff happening with that. We have the Colorado 7 Corridor Plan that we gave a presentation on at NATA last month that would be of interest. And then this Etrp. So what we want to ask you is, how do you feel about these presentations? Here are the options. You know, premiering these presentations as a webinar that people sign up for, or doing them at Smart Commute and then having them available as a link on YouTube, or doing sort of mini transforms where we just choose a day, we have the speaker live, and the people who sign up for the webinar can ask questions and interact with the speaker. So those options are all things we kind of wanted to get some help on. So scheduling them, what kind of outreach efforts, how do we distribute them, and who are the target agencies we want to have these speakers do these presentations with. I'll turn it over to you, Joyce, to call on speakers.
Thank you. All right. Any comments or ideas?
This is Emily. I like the idea of having where people can log on and hear the speaker live and be able to interact and ask questions. I have a concern that if it's just recorded and put on YouTube, that people might not get it. Whereas if it's an event and promoted that way, you might have more attendees, but you guys would know more on the data behind that of what sort of data are you guys getting on just the YouTube videos compared to like the Transform events that you guys just recently hosted?
I think I can probably help address that. I think we definitely, you're spot on, Emily. I don't think we're going to get quite the audience we might get on just a standalone YouTube video. However, we haven't really promoted anything necessarily heavily in the past in this specific way. We've never had just a standalone webinar type event. So I think anecdotally, we would probably get slightly less viewership that way, or less impactful viewership in that way.
So I'm wondering, because we sit through so many of these virtual meetings and webinars, I mean, it's almost overkill, sometimes I think. But I'm wondering if we do maybe a speaker live and then record it and put it up on YouTube.
We can do that.
So that you would capture the question and answer period also. There's a lot to consider. What are the downsides to the different options, Karen or Carson, that you see on any of these options?
Yeah, I think the downside to not having it as a webinar is that there's limited amount of questions. The people watching, like if we did it at Smart Commute and then put it on YouTube, it would only be us asking the speaker questions. Whereas if it's a larger broad-based webinar, you get more questions. We get more publicity out of a larger webinar. It will draw people who are specifically interested in one of these issues. I think it's a little more work for us. We can do, I think maybe Carson mentioned, we can do a Zoom interview like we did for the N-Line with the artists and then show it, or we can do it live. And I always feel like live is better because of that interaction with the audience. Carson, I know I'm missing some stuff. We've talked about this. What's your take on this?
Sure, I think everything you mentioned is right, but I think one thing for a live event on some of these more specific topics, I just want to be sure we have the right partner maybe to promote these events. I would hate to bring somebody in and only get 25 or 30 people show up and it not be worth the speaker's time, which sounds terribly negative, I know, but if we could partner on some of these with a ACE rep or Broomfield Chamber or anybody else to maybe host one or two of these. And we can always do, different approaches for different things. If we want to record some of them, if they're a little bit more focused, and promote them online. And if we want to host kind of a more standalone webinar and record that as well. I think pretty much everything we're doing, unless we go back to in-person events before this is over, will be recorded in some way, shape, or form. And we will put it online unless there's some kind of pushback to that.
Well, one of the things we could do, I've thought about this, is to carve out a piece of our monthly meeting for one of these presentations, maybe half of our monthly meeting, and then just invite people to come to that and be part of that second half of our meeting. And then just put it out in our newsletter, put it out on our Facebook and that sort of thing, and let people come to listen to that piece of it, but still just have it as part of our meeting. The first half of our meeting would be excluding others. And then as that presentation happened at the second half of our meeting, open it up to people to come into it. And I'm not sure how difficult logistically that would do, but it would then keep it from being an expectation that you would have 200 people at this webinar. You would know you were doing it for Smart Commute Board and anyone else who was interested. I don't think Kyle or Pedro would feel bad if we didn't get a whole lot of people and then just, YouTubed it later. Jim Suby from Front Range Rail, he's down with Guy. He's going to be the same. He's happy to talk to anyone who'll listen to the progress on Front Range Rail. I think because of the nature of these presentations, a large audience isn't going to be necessary, would be welcome, but it wouldn't be like when we do Transform, where we really hope to get 150 people to make it worth the speaker's effort. Not that any of you speakers wouldn't be, certainly acknowledged and certainly should have a large audience. Kyle, I'm looking right at you.
I was gonna say, Karen, when I saw this on the agenda, I was like, oh, that must be just a presentation for the Smart Commute Board. So I didn't even think it was beyond that. And yeah, and then I started thinking, oh, is this designed to be some type of a replacement for the Transforum, which I'm not sure that would be such a great idea. So I'm glad to hear it's not that. No, I have no I just worry that there might even be baseline fatigue because I've given this presentation so many times. So I'm personally happy to deliver it, especially to this group. If anybody wanted to see it afterwards on YouTube, great. If they didn't, great. Doesn't matter to me. I would just ask that if this is the path we go, if I can be on a much later in the year agenda, since I'm getting my own fatigue of having given this presentation so many times, and would prefer to do it later on if that's okay.
You bet. And, that's your Amazon, isn't it, over there on Huron and 160th? Mm-hmm. As that gets, I live right over there, and so I'm seeing the progress on that every day. Maybe later in the year to just touch on a little bit more on that Amazon. You have one slide in your presentation that shows some of the sustainable efforts that you're putting into that. So I think that's great. We can put you on toward, the end of the process if you'd like to. So maybe, unless we have any other strong feelings, we work internally in our staff and figure out how we should plug these in so that maybe every other month we have something.
And Karen, we'd be happy to promote this. These what we call niche events, where the attendance isn't 200, but it's 40 or 50. that's what we're doing too, and we find them very powerful in promoting your brand and the Metro North region brand, and people
Yeah.
want to know all this stuff. So we're happy to promote it every which way from Sunday
Oh,
for you,
that's great.
I like that.
including the link for the YouTube in our newsletter and on our website.
Oh, yeah.
So those are some thoughts too.
Okay, great, Jeb. Thanks.
And that was my comment. I was wondering more about the marketing and the promotion, because these are actually valuable pieces of information that we should want to push out to the community. So in, whatever we can do, but I was concerned about the marketing because I too would hate to have Kyle only have us listen to him.
One other quick note is that we have a partnership with all of the Metro North region chamber directors. And they're really the outreach for the smaller businesses, and a lot of these small businesses are interested in this. So just by virtue of us promoting it to them, will connect a lot of those smaller businesses that might not be reached. They can be reached now. So that's kind of exciting.
That's great.
And I'm wondering too, with, because we have so many jurisdictions, and I'm sure you're going to give a little overview at NADA also when the time comes. So I'm wondering, every jurisdiction has access to the internet and to all that type of things, and they want to put different public announcements or information out there. So I'm wondering if you connect with Northland, Thornton, Broomfield, and have them, actually air some of these things.
Great idea. Okay, any other questions, do you think, Chair?
I don't think so. Any other questions or comments about this? No. All right. So next move to our favorite topic, which is the end line.
Yeah, so I've asked the auspicious director, RTD director, Vince Busick, to join us today and tell us about the N-Line pilot fair ending the end of this week, and some of the efforts that have gone into trying to keep that going, and your ideas, Vince, on where you think this is going, if anywhere.
Sounds good, thanks. And just for those joining us that don't know about the program, just a little bit of history. So back at the end of 2019, I spearheaded this concept of a promotional fare pilot program on the N-Line commuter rail. The reason for that is the last two stops on the north end of the line, 124th and 112th, are in what is known as a regional fare zone. So if you board or alight at those stops, your fare is $5.25. If you go one stop further, it's $3. It's in a local fare zone. So I worked with other directors. I worked with Representative Kyle Mullica and our then general manager to put together this promotional fare pilot program. It was the first time in the history of RTD something like this was done. And what that program did was eliminate the regional fare zone on those last two stations, 112th and 124th, and made them a local fare zone so that you can ride the N-Line end to end for $3 each way. So we did it for a couple of reasons. First of all, this concept of equity, and that it didn't seem fair that you had these last two stops that you're going to pay $2.25 more just to get there, whereas a lot of the other lines, rail lines in the RTD district didn't have that. Although we do have some. For example, the W line that goes out to Golden, it's local all the way until the very last stop is regional. So we have a couple of these issues throughout the district as well. So anyway, the promotional fare program was approved by the board and went into effect in September of 2020 when the end line opened. It's a 6-month program, and there's a reason for that. The Federal Transit Authority is the entity that regulates fare, equity issues around fares, and so forth. And so when it comes to a promotional fare program like this, the FTA says you can do it for 6 months. And if you want to go past 6 months, you have to do a full Title VI, which is the Civil Rights section of the Civil Rights Act that regulates transit. You have to do a full equity analysis on whether or not this promotional fare, or if it gets extended, will impact minority and marginalized communities anywhere else throughout the entire RTD district disproportionately. So you can do it for 6 months without having to do that analysis. And so that's why we have this 6-month window of this promotional fare pilot program, because we didn't need to do that big equity analysis, and we could get the program in place upon the opening of the end line. And one of the other goals was to see what impact a fare reduction would have on ridership. You know, we had ridership projection numbers going into this pre-pandemic, and we wanted to see if you brought those fares down on those last 2 stations, would you increase ridership? You know, what's the elasticity of those fares? So unfortunately, the pandemic hit and ridership plummeted across the entire district. And although end-line ridership has been similar to that of other commuter rail lines, it's still all the way across the board, it is a big problem. So we have this issue now where the promotional fare pilot program is ending Saturday because that's the 6-month window. We have attempted to we have contacted the FTA, and our new general manager and CEO, Deborah Johnson, knows the regional rep of the FTA very well. And we tried to make arguments that we should have this 6-month window extended because of the unusual circumstances with regard to pandemic. The FTA said, no, we just can't do that. You have to do the entire equity analysis. The other option we've explored with local communities is a fare buy down. What would it cost if the communities got together and paid RTD the difference between $3 and $5.25 for all the boardings at those 2 stations for whatever period of time they elect? So I believe that some information, ridership numbers, and the fare differences have been provided to the local communities. I don't know what the situation is with communities, whether there's an appetite for doing that or not. I think that may still be under discussion. I've been working with Representative Kyle Mullick. I've got another call with him and Deborah Johnson again today to see what our options are. But the bigger picture, I think, is something that the board talked about at the end of 2019 and going into 2020. And the discussions are being resurrected again. And that's an analysis of the fares across the entire RTD district. And that's what really needs to happen. And our new general manager is completely on board with doing that, because she has said over and over again, she doesn't understand our fare structure. And if she, a person with decades of transit experience, can't figure this out, how can a typical rider figure out what zone am I in? What does it cost to transfer? How long is my fare good for? So a lot of other issues. So an equity analysis is underway for that big picture, throughout the whole district. What can we do to propose a different fare structure that's easy and can attract ridership back to RTD? How does that help the end line? Well, it doesn't. It doesn't help the end line right now. Short term, it doesn't look like there's going to be a quick fix to this. So it appears that the fare will go back to $5.25 when this expires. And if we do get some movement on reducing fares or changing fares throughout the district, that will happen. I guess we'll still talk to the local communities along the route about a fair buy down, whether that's something they want to consider, they need more information or whatever. So discussions are continuing, but short term doesn't look promising.
Thanks, man. That doesn't sound encouraging at all, really. You know, and for us, you know, some of the conversations, it will impact the ridership because many times those folks that don't want to pay the 525, they're actually going to go down to 104th, probably, you know, get their ride starting there, you know, and then that's going to impact the ridership numbers further north, you know, and then that of course will evaluate, do you even want to complete the rest of the line? So for me, this is, I'm just not very happy with it. And I don't think that the jurisdictions are going to be very happy with it. I don't know where the buy down position is. We haven't really talked about it in Northland, so I'm not sure how the process is going for outreach to the different jurisdictions. Who was it? Was it Westminster or Broomfield that did that? I'm not sure.
Longmont.
Oh,
Longmont.
Longmont did it. Oh, okay. Okay. So I'm not sure of the appetite, and especially with the different budgets that have, you know, due to the pandemic, you know, we're in a crunch. I mean, all of the cities have budget concerns, but we also have transportation concerns, and we want our ridership to increase, not decrease, and that's what's going to happen.
I understand. On Monday, there was a conference with Deborah Johnson and representatives from Thornton and North Glen to discuss all the different issues. And I'm hopeful those discussions will continue. But yeah, I understand the fair buy down, you know, that puts this on the backs of the communities, and you know, that's not where it belongs. And hopefully, you know, this bigger picture discussion of fares will happen soon and quickly. And in fact, like I said, we began having those discussions in the very beginning of 2020. We started talking about reevaluating the entire fare structure throughout RTD, and we had some numbers and proposals, and we were making some good headway. And then the pandemic hit, and you know, for the last year, we've just been struggling to function. So yeah.
Oh, I get it. You know, I understand. You know, but for those elected officials in the different jurisdictions that are affected, the residents waited so long to get their train, even to where it is, you know, and then all of a sudden they have the burden of the extra fee. And many of these people, you know, have jobs that are difficult to, you know, add that extra $2 on each end, you know, so.
Right, absolutely.
You know, I get it.
Yeah.
And now the businesses are slowly starting to open up, but not to full capacity. Yeah, so it's also the last mile piece of it. I mean, there's just so many loose ends, you know, so it's just another piece. I mean, you know, that we have to consider and how to work it out. So I truly promote in the idea of, you know, looking at the entire system, you know, and having an equity lens to that. I think that's so important.
Looks like Gene has his hand up, Joyce.
Okay, Gene?
Vince, has RTD, I understand why a lot of people have not gone onto buses and trains because of the pandemic, because of the quote, social distancing and what have you. We're going to be coming to the end of that May or June, because by that time it's planned to have everybody had a vaccination and there's going to be enough supply for it. Has RTD thought about saying, okay, the pandemic is ended, the governor has said you don't have to wear a mask and stuff, to have a come back to RTD type event promoting people getting back on the bus, getting back on the train, and using it. Because I think a lot of people, because of the pandemic, have become hermits. They either drive in their car because they're not having to do the social distancing and what have you. But once everybody is vaccinated, do a day where welcome back to RTD.
Yeah, absolutely. And just so you know, we had a board committee, a special board meeting last night, and Deborah Johnson let us all know that at our next meeting, she is going to be unveiling her re-energizing program for getting people back to transit. And it's not just a one-day event. It's going to be a whole program and a lot of moving parts, you know, and it's going to have to depend a lot on, you know, when we are given permission to increase the numbers of people on our conveyances, right? The social distancing requirements. And Deborah Johnson understands fully that this is a perfect time to have these broader fare discussions, because part of attracting people back to transit is, make it less expensive, make it easier. There's the potential of offering a period of free ride. I mean, everything's on the table to make that happen. But I think for this specific discussion, addressing the overall fare program throughout the district, this is the prime opportunity to do that, because you can lower fares and make them more equitable for every reason and for every person. You may have a better time getting people back on.
So when you say that, would that be another 6-month pilot program, or are we looking at a full-fledged analysis? Yes.
Yeah, the full-fledged analysis will get us to the point where we make permanent changes to the fare, not just 6 months. That will be the new fares moving forward. And Deborah Johnson understands the issues around RTD fares. When I first came on the board, our budget contained assumptions that fares would increase every 3 years. And the new board that came on in 2019 put a pretty quick stop to that, because we have some of the highest fares in the country. And if you have a budget that just says, and they're going to go up at least 10% every 3 years, you're going to just, people are already at the point where they say, should I take the train? Should I drive? Mm-hmm. And for transit to be successful, that can't even be a thought. Transit has to be the first choice and not driving. So, we got to work towards that.
So I do have another question. We've got the governor's task force, we've got Reimagine, we have the board. I mean, how are all these pieces working together? For me, it seems like it's actually bogging down the process, having all this, but maybe not. I mean, I don't know. So I'm just kind of curious your feeling.
Yeah, well, so everyone, people may or not know, the governor appointed this accountability committee of a group of, blue ribbon panel type committee to take a deep dive into RTD and tell us how to run the agency. Most of the people have, I better not. Anyway, some people have transit experience and many don't. But, it's all a business analysis, I suppose. And honestly, we've been kind of walking on eggshells around the accountability committee and, waiting to hear what kinds of things they're proposing. One of the things coming forward is a good thing, because they're proposing some changes in legislation in the RTD statute that limits our ability to do certain things, limits our ability to provide more contracted services, which is cheaper for us, limits our ability to change the requirement on how much do we get back from the fare box versus from other sources? So these are good things that the accountability has come up with. There's some other things still in the works that can be problematic. We had a discussion last night about these local service planning committees and what that looks like and how that'll work. So yeah, some of these things could bog us down. Reimagine Rtd, another concept that took off in 2019, I think, and then took a pause for a while with the pandemic and is now coming back on, which is supposed to look at the future of transit and how Rtd fits into all of that. So I don't know that that's necessarily something that'll bog us down. Might give us some good ideas. Rtd can determine, and the board can determine what ideas they think are good and bad. With the accountability committee, you know, you've got when they make proposals to us and say, we think you should do this, you know, we've got to, if we say no, we have to tell them why and give specific explanation. And then there's always the threat over our head, if we disagree, that they're just going to legislate it anyway.
Right.
So it's probably, it's okay. I mean, hopefully we're getting good things out of both of these, Reimagine and the accountability committee, and we'll take away the best of those things that we can. But yeah, you know, we've got 15 board members. For the size and population of our district, that is not a lot of board members. We each have about 225,000 constituents in our districts. You reduce the number of board members to 5, do the math. How do you properly represent all of those people in all of those areas? You just can't. So, but that's some of the things the accountability committee, they're looking at this whole governance thing. Should the board composition be changed? And, you know, there's a lot of talk about, well, you know, you get people that run for the board that, you know, don't have no opposition. I would challenge each of you to go to our website and read the bios of our board members, because you got some pretty impressive individuals on there with fantastic backgrounds, backgrounds in transit, former elected officials, things like that. So, you know, I think we've got a pretty high functioning board. But that's accountability committee stuff. Hopefully we'll get some, like I said, we'll take away the good stuff and deal with what we maybe determine is the not so good stuff.
Thanks, Vince.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any comments, concerns, questions for Vince? All right, let's thank you, Vince, very much for coming in today. Let's go to the unsolicited proposal for I-25 improvements.
You bet. And I'm going to be respectful of time here. I know people want to get out by 9:30 and we've gone over that. So Carson, can you throw that slide up, the last slide that we have? All right. So many of you, Jean and Joyce and many, Joe, Jean, many people have been involved in the I-25 improvements process for many years. And we have been stymied in trying to get enough money into the system to make the improvements that are necessary. We have had a moratorium on unsolicited proposals for a number of years, about 6 years, and we lifted that 2 months ago so that CDOT would at least acknowledge or consider, analyze unsolicited proposals. And one that's been percolating for a long time is an unsolicited proposal to HPTE, the High Performance Tolling Enterprise, and CDOT to make improvements on I-25. This comes from ROTUS. Some of you may know ROTUS has tried to do some unsolicited proposals on E470 and on C470 that were not acceptable either to the jurisdictions or to CDOT. This one came out 2 days ago and was sent to me by Mike Shirotis, who is working for ROTUS and used to be the HPT director. He was the first HPT director. And many of you know Mike has a long history of finance and transportation and has a fairly well-established reputation and understands the needs that CDOT has. So I'll just give you a quick overview of what this is and then leave you with a thought. So this proposal that Mike has sent out it takes the whole length of the corridor. It's mobility and safety improvements to the operating segments. It's a full extension of express lane system from Denver to Fort Collins. As you know, there are segments that are unfinished because of lack of funding. Completion of multimodal and BRT options, which means allowing buses to run in the center platform area. Bus rapid transit that really doesn't exist. It's more just B for bus, because the buses get caught in traffic just like everybody else. Investment in involving technology for electric vehicles and greenhouse gas reduction, and no additional state or local funding required, because this is very similar to what happened on US 36. And that is that a lease concessionaire wants to come in, make all these improvements, and lease back this revenue stream for the next 50 years. So they would in fact get the revenues from these toll segments, but make the improvements up front. It's not unheard of. It's done other places. We did it on US 36. So this is a suggestion that has gone into CDOT. The request has been that ROTUS really needs jurisdictions to consider whether this is a good idea or not. And then if they like the idea of getting this done, they would like some support from all of us, from the jurisdictions along I-25, from NADA, from Smart Commute. And I had a conversation with Nick Farber, who's the executive director of HPT, yesterday. And I said, okay, I got sent this unsolicited proposal. Should I be promoting it? Am I allowed to look at it? And he said, absolutely. It's only a concept proposal at this point. And he said, I think because of the nature of the CDOT executive management team that don't really want road expansions to happen during their what do I want to say, their authorization as the management team, that it's going to take a heavy lift from the jurisdictions to push on that. The improvements include in our segment, the original EA, which suggests that there's a center loading platform for the bus, that they don't enter into the flow of traffic, that they're instead in a center managed lane, that the managed lanes go all the way up to Highway 7 and beyond, so that the buses can have an uninterrupted and reliable travel shed, that auxiliary lanes are added north and south, so that when 270 comes in, those cars can enter into the flow of traffic without the bottleneck that happens today, where they start to enter into an already over capacity used 25 north, and there's no place for those cars to go. And so everything stops, and the bottleneck goes all the way back to 270. Pros and cons to this. It's the same issue we had on 36, where some people don't like the idea of a global partner coming in and managing a road segment. But under this scenario, all the operations and maintenance belong to ROTUS and takes that cost off the CDOT books. The other piece I think of this is, in the 10-year plan that we've approved at CDOT, there's no significant money in here to make the improvements on I-25 in the next 10 years. There's piecemeal in there. And I don't believe that we're going to get improvements in that area that has the most critical need for safety improvements, and that's 84th to 104th. Under this scenario, the 88th bridge gets rebuilt, some other things. So two things I want to leave with you. One is, I am happy to send, I'll have Carson send it, anybody who wants to see the proposal. I have it here. It's about 6 pages long, maybe a little more than that. It's 6 pages long. It's a conceptual proposal to look at it. Mike Shirota says he's willing to come to any group and talk about this. The proposal went into HPTE, but it probably won't be evaluated for another month because HPT is putting in some guidelines for unsolicited proposals that will probably require this proposal to do an amendment or a reapplication. And then we should talk about, is this a group that wants to weigh in on something to CDOT and HPT that says, we'd like you to give consideration to proposals like this that provide improvements that have been endorsed by the community going forward, or something of that nature. We can figure out what that is. And secondly, do you want Rhoda's group to come in and talk to us about this proposal and answer questions?
Karen, thanks for this. I would definitely say this falls within our purview as a smart commute. So I think we should be in a position of rendering an opinion either for or against this. It does sound as though CDOT, well, we all know that they're very financially constrained. So it's, unless funding this takes dollars out of something else that would have otherwise been funded. I mean, we want to talk about that. But I think to have the ROTUS group come and speak to us and better explain what it is that they're proposing, I, as one board member, would be very much in favor of that.
I would certainly echo that, Karen. I'd love to see this proposal, and I'm a big fan of doing a comprehensive plan for the whole corridor and doing it, instead of doing it piecemeal, little tiny chunks at a time. Having been around transportation for well over 20 years and seeing the glacial pace, doing a comprehensive program like this would be a nice change.
Good.
I would echo both of the comments, Karen. So if we can bring someone in, excuse me, to do a presentation. I don't know. I mean, if they're going to be doing amendments, maybe we need to wait until, you know, they've completed the proposal with amendments, you know, so that we have a better idea. Or what is your thought on that?
My thought is that it doesn't hurt for them to come in and listen to our feedback, as they may have to provide some amendments. And I worry that if in fact they believe there has to be heavy lift by the jurisdictions, that we should start thinking about whether this is something we want or not, so that we can galvanize support for it if we think it's a good enough proposal. Because the process is, it goes to HPTE, the management staff of HPT look at it for its merits, and once they evaluate the merits, they turn it into CDOT. Then CDOT's executive management looks at it, and if they think it has any merit, then it comes back to our board, the HPTE board, to move it forward or not. And somewhere between the HPTE and CDOT is where we need to have jurisdictions and stakeholders weigh in, so when it gets to CDOT, it doesn't just die a death.
Okay.
So I think maybe it would be okay to just have them give us the concept, and we will never see the proprietary proposal.
Right.
So it doesn't really do us much good, I don't think, because this is the concept proposal, and it gives you cost and length of lease term, and the segment, each of these segments, it gives what each of those segments would be getting under this proposal. So I think all of those things are pretty important. So if that's okay, I'll set it up so they come to our next meeting. But meanwhile, I'll send this out, have Carson send this out to you.
Yes.
To look at, particularly Joe and Jean Putman and Kyle and others who have an interest in what these segments look like and what improvements. And Kyle, particularly for McWhinney, even, you know, the pieces up to the north are included in this. And it's the pieces that aren't funded yet that could be funded. So great.
Karen,
Okay.
why don't we just send it out to everyone?
I'll send it out to everyone, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. And I like the idea of trying to bring them into the next meeting also. All right.
That's all I've got, Madam Chair.
All righty, thank you. Is there anything else from the board before we adjourn?
Yeah, this is Kyle. Two things that may be good for a subsequent agenda. There's been a lot of press about the governor's stimulus related to transportation. And I was wondering if there's any update, Karen, that you and the team might be able to provide as to where those dollars, for how much, and where those dollars might be deployed. And of course, the ulterior motive is how do we get our fair share?
Mhm.
And then the second piece is related to the mobility hub. We'd had that meeting with Shoshana on site. And I think she almost gave us a charge to say, well, hey, what could you do with $30 million in that location? And we'd just love to understand how we further that conversation and how that might dovetail into what we just heard from Rodas about what they're planning to do along the corridor.
Okay, so I'll give you 2 quickies on this one then. The stimulus money is coming through. It's in different clumps. One of the clumps is a new program called Revitalizing Main Streets, and it's $30 million for programs and projects throughout the state of Colorado that help revitalize restaurant use and that sort of thing. Two tranches of it. One is for projects 150,000 or less, and the other one for $500,000 or less. And we'll have a presentation on that tomorrow at NADA. The other piece of that is that stimulus money has some money available that will come into those formulas of 60% into CDOT and 22% to counties and 18% to cities. So there's money coming in that way. And the new stimulus funds are also creating 3 new enterprises, one for the Office of the Colorado Energy Office, one for CDPHE, the Health Department, and another one for CDOT. And all of them will be related to electrification efforts or sustainability efforts. In CDOT, the money is going to go to transit projects, and CDOT is looking at providing bigger transit projects. We'll have this laid out for us next month. Once we know exactly how much money is coming in, and I can give a report on that. As for the Mobility Hub, this is an interesting ongoing conversation. The Mobility Hub has 1.5 million allocated in years 5 through 10 of the 10-year plan. And under the new funds that are coming in, we've moved that money from years 5 through 10 years 3. So in year 3, which is this coming year, we will have 1.5 million to do some early design on that. Shoshana has taken the idea of BRT on Highway 7 that could be provided by CDOT as an opportunity to have that conversation about providing BRT on Highway 7. And that conversation is ongoing. We've talked about how improvements need to be made on Highway 7 before we do BRT, but she's very eager to do BRT now. And we've had the discussion about how difficult that would be because it would only be B. It wouldn't be BRT, because at each intersection, you have to wait for the light to go through 2 or 3 timings in order to move that along at the bottleneck areas. So we're having that conversation. The CDOT staff is working on what does 1.5 million do for a mobility hub, and how do you position that then to do the connectivity we talked to her about, the north, south, east, west connectivity. All of that's still percolating. And as you know, we, the small group, are going to have a meeting with Deborah Johnson and a couple of people from her staff in April, having the same conversation about the need for connectivity, the mobility hub, the service that's needed up here, and how does it fit into the connectivity that development is doing up there. As for this unsolicited proposal on I-25, I did ask them why they didn't put the mobility hub in there. It is not in there. And they told me because it doesn't generate any money. and they're a business, right? So they want the projects that will generate money, and that's the managed lane projects. But what Mike said to me was, there will have to be that diverging diamond that Jean loves and has promoted. That has to be a replacement piece that now can be done because CDOT won't have to pay for the other things on I-25, right? So it's a trade-off of money. And once that diverging diamond is done, there can be other opportunities as ROTUS looks at this to find other partners to help with that mobility hub. So it's good enough news. It doesn't pin it to a time. And we know it's an expensive undertaking, but it does, this other proposal then does free up funds that CDOT would have to use to finish those managed lanes or to do the, the improvements along that. So yeah, that's kind of a quick down and dirty on what's happening at the CDOT arena.
Okay. Anyone else have anything? All right, I don't hear anything, Karen. So I appreciate it. This was a great meeting, a lot of information. Thank you very much. And we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for hanging in. Great board. Thank you.
Thank you.